Hello everyone, I'm Anna Fisher, and I screwed up. I was supposed to be posting the next Viuska mythology video today, and I accidentally wrote my scripts out of order, so I'm mostly done the script that was supposed to come out today, but not quite. So I still have to record that and make slides for that and edit that and render it, and all of that's going to take at least a week, so today you're getting a different video. This is an entirely unscripted video. This is, but I want to talk about why the 1500s were 80% bonkers by volume. I spent a lot of time talking about the early modern period on here, and this is not actually because it's my favorite period. It's actually because I'm working on a project that's inspired by the Tudors, heavily inspired by the Tudors, but it doesn't take place in Tudor England. But it's a fantasy novel with a lot of sort of court intrigue and systems and sort of the shift that was going on in Tudor society between the earlier High Middle Ages and the leading into the what would become the more sort of stable post medieval world, and how the Tudors were sort of at the cusp of that by sheer coincidence of timing. That heavily inspires this particular fantasy world, and so I have it on the brain, and so I want to talk about why the Tudors, and more broadly the 1500s throughout most of Western Europe, was kind of the land of total crazy. Why so much happened, why the personalities were so big, and why I spent so much time on this period going, I hate all of you, because I do. It has, a solid 60% of my least favorite people in history in it. But also like the people I am fascinated by because they're complete train wrecks. So what's going on with the Tudor period and the 1500s throughout most of Europe more generally is that things are starting to really finally crystallize after the fall of Rome. This begins earlier. You have various, you have Charlemagne and his court, which is considered a court that had a Renaissance, the Carolingian Renaissance. And then you have the 12th century Renaissance. You still have in these courts, you have very, very powerful nobles and not very powerful monarchs. You have monarchs who are heavily, heavily reliant on their feudal lords to manage large swathes of territory. The French king, for example, throughout most of this, really only had control over what's called the Ile-de-France, which is this area right around Paris where the king had his feudal lands. So the king was sort of, in many ways, a first among equals with his nobles, where he was a landowner who also happened to be their feudal lord. And he drew revenue from the state, for his household, for everything from his own feudal lands. And it was kind of considered to be kind of gross if he was using national tax revenue to fund his own life and to fund his court, or to do any sort of, a lot of administrative bureaucratic stuff was expected to be done through the king's finances, through his own feudal lands, as opposed to through the monarchy. And so as you start to get into the 1500s, power centralizes into the monarch's hands. And there are a lot of reasons for this. There are geopolitical reasons. There are reasons of just the monarch being better able to do that now because of things being more stable. There is the Black Death, and the monarchs managed to sort of, as the nobilities kind of got culled by the Black Death, monarchs were able to sort of accumulate that power back into their own grasp. You also had the rise of very powerful nobles who could compete with the monarchs. And so you had a lot of sort of writing about what a prince was and what a king was that was, in these, and prince here means ruler of territory, not son of a king. And this is when you start getting books like The Prince by Machiavelli, and also all of the other prince guidebooks that were less, frank, about, writing about what a prince was, what a monarch was, and what they should be doing, and what their, divine, semi-divine status was as the anointed monarch who was next under God. This is also when you start getting really, really firm succession laws, instead of it being like, it's the oldest son, but if there isn't one, we're sort of going to choose between the people of royal blood that we like best as the nobility and put them on the throne. You start having, firmer laws of succession. And effectively, the Wars of the Roses was kind of bumping up against the medieval style of succession. And as you get into the more firm succession laws, the Lancasters had the medieval style, and the Yorkists were like, yeah, but we actually have a better blood claim. I don't want to hash that out because the Lancasters came to power, in the Middle Ages. Sorry, guys. And the Yorkists, start pushing as we were on the cusp of the Middle Ages and the early modern period. So it's an understandable conflict. But, you start having the power centralized in the monarch's hands. You start having the monarch having this really explicit, I am destined to be the king and anointed by God. So you start hearing, young princes being taught basically that they are the most special little boys and girls in God's eyes, these princes and princesses. And you had princesses being taught this too, who were going to go marry into their courts, and they were, you are the princess and you are the daughter of an anointed monarch, and you are holy, practically. You are more holy than the average person. At the same time, the church's power was weakening because, first of all, you had these, at the time you had these Renaissance popes who were, by and large, pretty corrupt, terrible popes that nobody wanted to give any moral authority to. And you also had, the papacy's power and prestige eroded by the Avignon papacy, and then various wars of succession, papal succession, between popes and anti-popes who popes and other popes who were elected by other cardinals who were, duking out who got to be the pope. And nobody comes out well in that. The papacy did not come out well from that. So the church's power has been eroded, but at the same time, the popes are really leaning into the fact that they have the papal estates. So you have this weakening of any kind of constraining force on monarchies. You have the weakening of the nobles, you have the weakening of the papacy, and you have monarchs who are building this ideological foundation of being the most special. And they're teaching this to their children. They're teaching the most specialness to their children. So these young boys and girls are growing up hearing, you are the most specialist. You are God's most special boy and girl. This is a phrase I stole from a friend of mine. So you have a lot of power in the hands of people who have been taught you are the most special. And when you have power in a limited number of hands, the personalities of the people with those hands become very important. So this is why you get the big personalities. And who are controlling everything. And also, when you are teaching your children that they are the most special boys and girls on the planet, they're going to believe it. And they're going to act like it. And when they are monarchs with a lot of power, that's Pippa barking. When they are monarchs with a lot of power, that doesn't go good places. And it goes to bonkers, not good places. And you get a lot of people with really, really, really big egos running around with way too much power. So, if you want to write a system where people have, these massive personalities and are doing these really large scale things with their massive egos and too much power, you want to keep in mind the factors that brought this into play in the 1500s. And, you know, we actually have other periods across history that the same things seem to have happened. When you bring together an ideology that says monarchs are just the best, and monarchs get raised hearing that. When you have a limiting of constraining forces on their power, and you know, so there's nothing really holding them back. Yeah, those are the two things that really come together to make a period like the 1500s that is just completely. And then to add to that, we also have really good records of it. So fun times. So those are the things you want to put together in your novel if you want to have a period that politically looks something like the Tudors or the or any of the other 1500s monarchies. And this is especially prevalent, by the way, with the Tudors, because like the monarchs who did get told that they were God's most special little boy or girl for parts of their childhood, Henry VIII, Mary, Edward VI, were all absolute trash fires. Whereas the two who didn't really have that were the ones who were terrible people but also competent. You know, Henry VII and Elizabeth I, on the two ends of the Tudor period. So that's what you want to look for if you are going to be building that kind of political game. Anyway, thank you for watching this. I am so sorry that the other video is delayed. I do need to get myself together. Sorry. Yeah, Pippa's not going to shut up. Social media links are in the description below. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like and maybe even a comment, and possibly subscribing to my channel. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope your day has been lovely so far. And if it hasn't, I hope it gets better soon. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for watching.